Hello and welcome to Smash and Compare's Pokeball Pokemon episode, part 2. If you haven't seen the first part, you can click here to watch that, and there will be a link in the description as well as a card to click. If you have seen the previous episode, well then let's continue. The first two Pokemon for this episode are Latios and Latias. These Eon Pokemon are so far the only 2-in-1 Pokemon, though only one will actually be seen coming from the Pokeball itself. After being summoned, the pair will zoom across the stage, crossing in an X fashion, damaging opponents on contact with the move Steel Wing, a move that both Pokemon can learn with TM51. It's a decent Steel-type move in the Pokemon games, and it reflects that well in Smash, doing around 50% on average in Brawl and 70% in Smash 4. However, if you aren't within range to be hit, Latios and Latias will still throw you around with their trail of high-speed winds. The winds can push you back and forth, making it difficult for lighter characters and those with poor recoveries to stay away from the blast lines. These winds are most likely a reference to the fact that these Pokemon are incredibly fast flyers, going as fast as jet fighters when holding hands. What's interesting to note is that these two have a standard frequency rate even though they are considered legendaries in the Pokemon series and will still appear from Master Balls without the usual gasp from the crowd. Lugia is known as the Guardian of the Seas and is probably one of the most powerful Pokemon in Melee. This legendary will burst from its Pokeball and will fly up towards the sky, dealing 30% damage and extreme vertical knockback to anyone who touches it, KOing incredibly early. Lugia will then appear in the background of the stage and use the move Aeroblast, its signature move, in which large gusts of winds will travel across the stage in a random circular and sweeping pattern. This move is multi-hitting and will do 440% in about 2 seconds with around 20% per hit. Couple that with the massive amount of knockback it does, and it has a 99% of one-hit KOing, unless some complicated teching is used. It's the only Pokemon to ever be able to KO a player twice in a row, once with its body and once with Aeroblast. Now you're probably wondering why this move is so overpowered, right? Well, that's because in the Pokemon titles, Aeroblast is a move that is very powerful and has an increased critical hit ratio, meaning that it's going to deal some serious damage no matter what. In Brawl, Lugia was nerfed, thank God, and doesn't have nearly as strong of a KOing power. Touching Lugia can only KO over 100%, and it's no longer a multi-hitting attack, but can still KO at damages as low as 35%. In Smash 4, the max damage was lowered to 270%, but it still has the same amount of KOing power from Brawl. Lugia is just as savage as Articuno, and we should all be thankful this Pokemon is rare. Manaphy is by far one of the most unique and ingenious Pokeball Pokemon to ever appear in Smash. When summoned, Manaphy will fly up and use its signature move Heart Swap. In the Pokemon games, this move would swap any increase and/or decrease in stat change with the target, but in the case of Smash, what's swapped is the actual characters and their percentages. Manaphy will choose 2 players on the screen and swap their bodies, giving one player complete access to the other player's moveset, thrown Pokeballs, and broken assist trophies. This lasts for about 15 seconds, and should you lose a stock as the other player's character, it will be removed from your stock total, not theirs. However, it's possible to time it right and leave your opponent in an unfavorable position when Heart Swap ends, costing them a stock instead. Oh, and in case you are wondering, if 2 Manaphy's were to appear at the same time, the first Manaphy's Heart Swap would be cancelled out the moment the second one activated. Once referred as Peekaboo, given its close resemblance to Pikachu, Marill is a second-generation Pokemon that made its sole appearance in Melee. It uses the move Tackle, and like many other Pokemon that use this move, it's not too memorable or threatening. It'll walk across the stage and tackle anyone in its path. This move can possibly trap players, but it's pretty easy to DI out of. Marill will eventually fall off the stage or keep walking between walls until it disappears. It's possible to KO Marill, like Cyndaquil and Chansey, but nothing is rewarded for doing so. The move only does about 1% per hit, so it's more of a distraction than anything else. When summoned, the music Pokemon Meloetta will use the move Echoed Voice. In the Pokemon titles, the move when used consecutively will increase the move's power, eventually capping at 200 attack power, which is a lot considering the move's 100% accuracy. In Smash, Meloetta will fly into the air and perform a small dance before sending out ball-shaped sound waves. These sound waves will bounce off of platforms and the sides of the screen, like large pinballs, doing around 12% per hit. What's curious is why this move was chosen instead of Meloetta's signature move, Relic Song. Relic Song is a move that changes Meloetta's form from area form to Purette form, similar to how Kalito's form will change by knowing the move's secret sword. Being that its other form is a fighting type and that this Pokemon is famous for changing form, it would have made a lot more sense for it to use Relic Song. Now comes Meowth's signature move, Payday, but it isn't nearly as nice as it sounds. Instead of scattering coins on the ground with a value equal to 5 times the user's level for each time it's used like in the Pokemon games, this move will bombard the opponent with change. In the original Smash, Meowth will throw out and spin 120 coins in an X around itself. The range is low and easily avoidable, but it can trap opponents, dealing 6% per hit and up to 50% total. Though it lacked an appearance in Melee, becoming the only Pokeball Pokemon to skip an installment in the series, it returned in Brawl and Smash 4 with its attack slightly altered. Instead of having the coins circle around him, the coins are thrown out in front. Meowth will turn to face whichever direction the opponent is at and can easily trap them. The move alone does about 66%, but if Smash attacks are used on the trapped player, their damage can go up to over 300%. As a side note, Meowth's attack can actually be blocked by Link's shield or reflected in the later games, as its coins are considered items. Metagross is a common but powerful Pokemon. It uses the move Earthquake, which it can learn in the Pokemon titles with TM26. It slams its legs into the ground, generating a shockwave that'll bury players and send already buried characters or airborne characters upwards with decent knockback. It'll continue to stomp the ground several times before disappearing. In Brawl, this attack could deal up to 104%, but it was nerfed a bit in Smash 4, now only doing 48%. Oddly enough, the game doesn't recognize Metagross as a solid object right after release, so the Pokemon will fall through soft platforms if it was summoned on one. Moltres may truly be the most basic Pokeball Pokemon in Smash, though ironically it's one of the strongest. As a Pokeball Pokemon, Moltres will rise majestically, hover for a moment, and then fly into the sky. This may sound uneventful, but should any of the players touch Moltres, it'll be a one-hit KO. In Melee and Brawl, it dealt 40% in intense vertical knockback with the capability of meteor smashing. In Smash 4, they removed the one-hit KO ability and instead buffed its damage output, making it possible to deal up to 160%. What's confusing though is what move Moltres is using. While some claim that it's Overheat, a move that deals a lot of damage with high accuracy, others claim that it's Fly. We know from the trophy information for Moltres that it's actually using the move Sky Attack. Sky Attack was Moltres' signature move and has even better attacking power than Overheat. Though not incredibly useful in most situations, Munchlax can assist its summoner occasionally. Munchlax's role on the stage is to simply eat items. This is a reference to the ability Pickup, which in the Pokemon games allowed a trainer to randomly find items when walking around. However, there are certain items that it won't eat, including collectible items, Smash Balls, and Pokeballs. They're all off the plate, but assist trophies and Mr. Saturns are apparently okay to snack on. Should a player throw an item across the stage, Munchlax will actually run after it. It'll roam back and forth across the stage for a little while before disappearing, and if no items were on the stage, then it was effectively as useless as Goldeen. Onix is one of the few Pokemon to only make an appearance in the original Smash Bros. When released, Onix will fly above the screen, though no one is really sure how, before throwing rocks down onto the stage with the move Rock Slide. It's a decently powerful move in the Pokemon games, and can cause the opponent to flinch, which probably explains the minimal knockback it occurs. In Smash, it's not nearly as effective, doing only 4 to 12% for each of the 10 rocks. Onix can also harm players on the way up, doing 12%. Upon being summoned, Oshawott will use the move Surf, a move in the Pokemon games that is required to complete them as it allows a trainer to travel across water. It has a similar function in Smash, though not nearly as helpful. Oshawott will bring water to the stage and ride a wave right off, taking any opponents unlucky enough to get caught in. It's a trapping move, so it'll likely take the player off the stage before they have a chance to DI out of it, or in some cases, one-hit KOing. Palkia in a way is very similar to Manaphy, being that they are both very unique in their effect. When released, Palkia will slash at the screen before tipping it upside down temporarily. This reverses the controls, meaning that, as an example, walking right will instead move you left. Palkia also does 10% in low knockback to anyone who touches him. The move it uses is its signature move from the Pokemon games, Special Rend, which has an amazing power and an increased critical hit rate. Piplup, which replaced Marill and then later replaced by Oshawott, uses the move Surf. It behaves similarly to the other two and can be reflected. It deals no damage and has the potential to KO opponents. Piplup traps players better than Oshawott and KOs more often, even though it's more predictable. Completely composed of digital code, Porygon 2 will use the move Tackle. After being summoned, Porygon 2 will disappear before reappearing a short distance away and hitting the opponent. It seems a bit underwhelming until you can find out that it can one-hit KO as low as 25%. The move itself will deal about 25%, but its incredible knockback makes it one of the scariest non-legendary Pokemon in Melee. It doesn't appear too far from where it originally released, so it's unlikely to connect and somewhat easy to avoid. As a bit of side information, Porygon 2 was the only Pokeball Pokemon to not vocalize its name and instead use its sound effect from the game series. This is likely due to the fact that the only episode in the Pokemon anime to have any of the Porygons in it, Electric Soldier Porygon, was banned worldwide because its flashing lights gave some children seizures, and therefore there was no vocal sound to reference. Raikou, a legendary beast in the Pokemon games, rarely appears in Melee. It'll use the move Spark, a decent electric-type move that has a 30% chance to paralyze. It'll form a current of electricity around itself, damaging players 20 to 25% per hit and about 180% total if all attacks connect. However, this attack only works if the opponents touch the ground around Raikou. What's even stranger is that Raikou has the largest hitbox in Smash history, making its lack of effect on airborne opponents puzzling. Sadly, it was the only legendary dog to get cut from Brawl. Likely meant to replace Hitmonlee, Caesar appeared in Melee with a similar attack. It'll stalk across the stage before jumping up and using the move Metal Claw. Metal Claw is a decent move in the Pokemon titles and has the chance to raise the attack stat of its user, which might explain its extreme knockback in Smash. If you get hit towards the top of the screen, you'll take 15% per hit and likely lose your stock, but to be fair, you likely won't get hit. Its aim is kind of bad. It seems to like falling off the stage more than actually assisting its summoner. Snivy essentially replaced Chikorita in Smash 4 and uses the move Razor Leaf. Interestingly, Snivy can only know the move in the trading card game and not in the Pokemon video game series itself. Its move functions the same way Chikorita's does, but it's a bit faster and the leaves are spaced out more. If all hits connect, then it'll do around 84%. Now time for the Sleeping King Snorlax. Upon release, Snorlax will jump up above the screen, damaging players doing high knockback. Then it'll grow impossibly large and fall back down the screen, performing the move Body Slam. In Pokemon, the move is really powerful and its power can even be doubled if the move minimizes use before it. In Smash, the move is still strong and can KO at decent percents. In Brawl specifically, if Snorlax gets hit with a powerful attack before it jumps, then it'll go flying diagonally and fall in a different place instead. Its attack will do around 22% in Smash 64, 20% in Melee, 33% in Brawl, and 78% in Smash 4. Next up is Spupa. When summoned, it'll remain completely still and do absolutely nothing. That's right, it'll do nothing. Unless someone hits it. Once hit, it'll send out a cloud of spores that temporarily stun the opponent. Stun Spore in the Pokemon games has the same function, and Spupa is actually known for using it to ward off predators. It can deal up to 27%. Now it's time for Starmie. In the original Smash, Starmie will fly around and look for a character to attack. When an enemy is targeted, Starmie will seize movement and use the move Swift. Starmie will then stay still and fire stars from its gem. The stars are so close together that it can be nearly impossible to DI out of. Each star does only 3%, though once a character is trapped, it can easily rack up damage. Starmie itself also does damage and there's almost no knockback from its attack. Oddly enough, it was replaced by its lower evolution in later games. Speaking of, Staryu attacks in the exact same manner as its evolution. In Melee, Staryu's attack did 1% for each star and can be reflected. In Brawl, Stargy's rate of fire increased along with its speed, and in Smash 4, the star firing rate was reduced. In both games, the attack can do up to 38%. And now we've made it to the last of the legendary beasts, Suicune. In Melee, the Aurora Pokemon would perform the attack Blizzard, which in the Pokemon games had a 10% chance of freezing the target. This likely explains why the move will actually freeze players at high percents. The move also has low accuracy, which probably explains the terrible range it has in Melee. In Brawl, the move was changed to Aurora Beam, a move that Suicune can learn at level 29. This attack was beefed up with respect to range and knockback, as the move can one-hit KO characters. In Smash 4, the attack was changed slightly again. Instead of being a one-hit KO, the attack does more damage and now freezes opponents for a longer time, making it likely that a frozen character will lose a stock if they fall off the edge. In Melee it does 36%, in Brawl 35%, and in Smash 4 73%. Known as the Cotton Candy Pokemon, Swirlix will use the move Cotton Spore upon release. In the Pokemon titles, Cotton Spore lowers the target's speed stat a lot, and it does much the same in Smash. If any opponents get stuck in its pink cloud, their movements will slow down drastically, similar to that of the timer item. The range isn't all that great, however, making it unlikely to trap opponents. A spiritual successor to Clefairy, Togepi will too use the move Metronome. But instead of selecting any move from the other Pokemon in the game, Togepi has a strict set of 5 moves that it can use. Leech Seed, an attack that puts lipstick on any opponents near it, doing about 22%. Powdered Snow, an attack that'll freeze characters for about 10% and is actually a meteor smash that doesn't affect grounded characters. Sleep Powder, a move that puts all grounded nearby characters to sleep and deals about 10% damage. Magnitude, a move that buries opponents in the ground and can hit up to 3 times for 5% each. And lastly, Nightshade, an attack which blacks out the entire screen, and because of its negative effect on everyone, it's actually the rarest move that Togepi can use. In Brawl, no changes were made to the attacks except for the names. Sleep Powder became Hypnosis, Xerneas, and Nightshade became Smokescreen, which is more fitting given that Nightshade is an attacking move and Smokescreen is a move that obscures vision. Only appearing in Brawl, Torchic will use the move Fire Spin. Now, as we've said before, this is a trapping move in the Pokemon titles that takes 1/8 of the target's HP each turn that it's trapped. In Smash, it also traps opponents while dealing 40% and a surprising amount of knockback at the end of the move. Similar to Coughing, the range is terrible, which makes it very unlikely to connect. Though it's interesting to note that if two Torchics are present on the stage, the game will actually start to lag. Playing off the conceptual design of Beedrill, Unknown will bring all the other letters of the English alphabet onto the screen and use the move Takedown. Upon being summoned, one random Unknown will fly off the screen doing moderate knockback to any players that hit it. It will then return with its friends, flying diagonally upwards. This attack will take players to the top of the screen, making it a possible KO at low percents. Takedown does about 5% per hit, but there's something very confusing about it. Unknown can't learn Takedown in the Pokemon games. In fact, Unknown can't learn any moves. The only move Unknown has is Hidden Power, which isn't even a physical move, so you can't claim that that's the move they are using in Smash since they are clearly hitting the opponent. Venusaur couldn't learn Earthquake by leveling up when Melee came out. In fact, it would be another 5 years before it would be able to learn the move through TM26, but that little problem didn't stop it from using the move when it became a Pokeball Pokemon. Venusaur will shake the ground around it in a very similar fashion to DK's D special. The attack will do 18% damage to those caught in it with high vertical knockback, and it seemed to confuse AIs greatly. CPUs will try to shield it for some reason and will even hold their shield until it breaks just outside of its hitbox. Victini will come out using its signature ability, Victory Star. In the Pokemon games, the ability would increase the accuracy of its and its allies' moves, but in Smash it works a little differently. It'll give the summoner temporary immunity to knockback and 1.5 times boost to their attacks, but in order to see Victini, you have to unlock it first. Weavile will use the move Fall Swipe when released from its Pokeball. It'll dash back and forth across the stage, while hopefully not falling off of the stage, dealing only 1% damage each hit with no knockback. The opponent will however be stunned by each hit, and Weavile remains on the stage for a rather long time, effectively trapping them. If the character is hit while in the air, they will be sent up with high knockback, usually resulting in a star KO, which is very strange to say the least, given that False Swipe is a move that is famous for never actually causing a Pokemon to faint, and instead leaving the Pokemon with only 1 HP. Weezing performs the same way as Coughing does in the original Smash Bros. It'll shoot gas out of the holes in its body with the move Smog. The attack does 3% per hit, but it lasts a little longer and the attack is faster. It's actually the most damaging Pokemon in Melee, able to take characters over 100% if they get stuck in its center and don't die out of it. It can even deal over 300% to Giga Bowser given its huge size. Wobbuffet's reception in Smash Bros is very mixed. Some love Wobbuffet while others call it useless. What Wobbuffet does is use the move Counter, which in the Pokemon games deals back twice the damage dealt to it, which can be very ineffective in certain situations. In Melee, when someone touches it, they'll take a little knockback. Wobbuffet will then shake its head, which can harm both the opponents and the summoner. The stronger the attack, the stronger Wobbuffet's headbutt will be. In Brawl, the only changes made were the voice clips and they added a small pink circle around Wobbuffet's head when it gets hit. Xerneas is very similar to Victini. Instead of attacking, it'll use its signature move Geomancy, which boosts the knockback of all moves. That's right, all moves. Everyone in the match benefits from Xerneas' gift, but the summoner will get just a little bit more knockback added to their attacks. This actually makes sense given Xerneas is known as the life Pokemon and is known to be able to share eternal life with others. Though when you're fighting, you don't really want your Pocket Monster to be generous and help the other side. Xerneas is another Pokemon that you have to unlock. In Holy Arceus, we're finally at the Z's. The legendary bird to appear in Smash is Zapdos. When Zapdos is brought to the stage, it'll very quickly use Thunder Shock and blast electricity around itself. It stuns opponents trapped inside it and can deal up to 81% if the opponent gets stuck at the beginning of the move. The reason it stuns is probably due to the fact that the move Thunder Shock in the Pokemon titles has the ability to paralyze the target 10% of the time. And finally we have Zoroark. Zoroark will teleport behind a character and use the move Fury Swipes. It will teleport behind a character and hit them into the air, swipe at them multiple times, and finally send them crashing down towards the stage. Zoroark will hit the opponent 15 times for a total of 38% damage. The attack is very similar to a few final smashes that belong to characters like Ike, Greninja, and Cloud, though this could be because of Zoroark's illusion ability, giving it the capability of appearing as the last Pokemon in the player's party. It is also the only non-legendary Pokemon besides Goldeen that can be released from a Master Ball. And we're finally done. All we have left are the 3 most rare Pokemon in the Smash Bros. Universe, Mew, Celebi, and Jirachi. Mew is one of the few Pokemon to appear in every Smash game. When it comes in 64, it will fly away, not attacking anyone. The only award it gives you is the Mew Catcher bonus. In Melee, Mew is basically the same, only now it's in a bubble. It still gives out a bonus, and it also gives a notice saying you've seen him. Mew is one of the 2 unlockable Pokemon in Melee, so just unlock all characters and Mew will one day come your way. In Brawl, again Mew is mostly the same, though now it gives you an award besides a notice. Mew gives out a CD, unless you've already collected them all, then it'll drop a sticker instead. In Smash 4, Mew is almost unchanged besides design. Along with a notice, he'll drop either a random trophy or a custom part, and in the Wii U version, he can also drop CDs. Celebi first appeared in Melee, and like Mew, will just fly off, only giving a bonus and a notice. However, you have to unlock Celebi before you can ever encounter the rare Pokemon. Finding Celebi will give you a bonus, a notice, and the Celebi trophy. This is the only way to get the trophy, making it one of the hardest trophies to get in Melee. In Brawl, Celebi is much easier to find and will give out several random trophies, which can even include the Celebi trophy itself, along with the notice. Jirachi was only in Brawl, sadly, and like Mew and Celebi, simply flies away, though Jirachi gives out the nicest reward, making it the star of the show. Jirachi will release several stickers as it goes away. This can really help add to your sticker collection. This is actually very clever because stickers are made of paper, and in Pokemon, it is said that if you write a wish on the blue paper on Jirachi's head, it'll grant it. A lot of characters, stages, enemies, music, and even assist trophies get cut from Smash during development, though when it comes to Pokeballs, only one is known to have gotten cut in development, Ditto. When Melee was being made, Ditto was planned to be in it. Ditto supposedly would transform into an AI clone of another foe and assist the summoner. This would be a reference to Ditto's only move, Transform, which allows it to turn into enemy Pokemon. It still appears in the official Melee strategy guide, which means it was probably cut pretty late into development. However, there is a way to see Ditto through hacking and going to the debug menu. It sadly doesn't do what's intended. It just pops up, says its Japanese name Mon, and disappears. However, it does have a use in that it does 7 to 8% to whoever touches it. But after these 2 long episodes, we hope you enjoyed our little adventure into the Pokeball item and all the Pokemon inside it. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to follow Smash Compare on Twitter and Instagram because we post Smash facts, polls, giveaways, and updates on the show. Also, huge thank you for those that worked on this episode, including Vector Star Productions, James Rogers, and Karate Kid Austin. Make sure to check out their channels in the description. Thanks for watching, and I hope today turns out to be an awesome day. And play lots of Pokemon Sun and Moon, why don't you?